This is ContactTalkRadio.com. Consciousness in action. And you are taking action into your consciousness by tuning into Contact Talk Radio.
And on TuneIn.com, Hing.fm, and UpSnap Mobile.
Contact Talk Radio. Welcome to Conscious Conversations with Joan and Janet. Joan and Janet are subtle energy empaths who navigate consciousness. Their passion is to support you in your evolution. As consciousness, we are all one. One mind, one heart, free of all limitations. Experience this reality with us and discover how it can make a difference in your daily living. Join us in a state of grace as we explore, with warmth and humor, this thing we call life. Now, here are Joan Newcomb and Janet Barrett.
Welcome to Conscious Conversations with Joan and Janet. We're your co-host, Joan Newcomb, coming to you from Tacoma, Washington, and my partner, Janet Barrett, is coming to you from Portland, Oregon.
Hello, everyone. How nice to be with you again.
It's a lovely day in the neighborhood.
Yeah. Well, there's so much to enjoy.
There is so much to enjoy. And we have, I wouldn't say it's an enjoyable topic, but it's an interesting topic. It's very trending at the moment, I would think. And if you guys have an opinion to add to our trending topic, which I'm about to tell you in a second, the number to call in to talk to us live is 1-844-390-8255. That is 1-844-390-8255. And not to keep you in any suspense any longer, the topic today is Judgement, Discernment and Consciousness. Is the world going to hell in a handbasket? Are you finding the other side's viewpoint intolerable? How can you tell if something is in your best interest? What is the right choice to make? So stay tuned, because we will be talking more about discerning as consciousness and what happens when you do.
And it's pretty simple. You know, our answer is always going to be go to heart-centered awareness. So we'll really get into that today. And
yeah, that's your answer. But yes, we'll go into that today.
For what it's worth, there you go.
It'll be my answer when I'm in heart space, but now.
Okay. So let's see. We want to know, we got our brand new Conscious Conversations with JoanandJanet.com website. We want to let everybody know.
And that is a handy website. Yes, you can go there to listen to the podcasts and listen and access yours and mine websites. Right.
Our blogs, we have meetups, you in Puget Sound, me in the Portland, Oregon area, and all about our sessions and how to reach us on Facebook and Twitter.
My meetups are in the Puget Sound.
That's what I said.
Yes, we're wearing life preservers.
Yeah.
And it's really cold.
Puget Sound area. Okay.
Right. If you're in the Puget Sound more than 15 minutes.
Yeah.
What's that called?
In the drink.
No, actually, what is it? It's a thing called, you start to go numb and you, hypothermia.
Yeah.
Right. So So Janet, yes, your meetups are in Portland and you hold them in the comfort of your own home, and people can go there to have this delightful, wonderful experience of heart space. And you set this amazing energy level.
Oh, thank you.
And mine are in Seattle, Bellevue, Tacoma, University Place, Lakewood, and Olympia, and you can go there for scintillating conversation and also techniques that you can use to navigate your life. So they're just like this show, Janet, is our meetups have a similar focus and topic, and you and I are such opposites that the experiences at the meetups are quite different.
Oh, I think probably, underneath it's like we are different approaches, and it's the same.
Exactly.
In heart. So yeah, just different ways to reach the same place. So, and we want to let people know tomorrow is our free conscious conversation conference call. That's Thursday, which is always the third Thursday evening, 7 p.m. Pacific, and reach out to us at our Gmail address at consciouswithjoanandjanet@gmail.com, or the website, and get all the info and the phone numbers and everything. And we up close and personal, so it's like being with us in our groups that we both provide, and what a little different feeling than what the radio show is about sometimes, because we really focus on what's going on to you, the individual.
Yeah, so exactly what Janet said, and then in my words would be to get up close and personal. It's an opportunity to call in and be able to ask your questions in a way that you might not be able to live on the show. You know, if you're listening to this in your car, if you're at work or something, it might be harder to call in. And you can call in to our conference call and get that vibe. And you're right, it's a lovely small group experience. You know, when you're hearing this on air, you're getting, you know, all the people from all around the world that are listening. So it's a intimate experience.
Well, and that's the fun part. It's intimate, and everybody is around the country or someplace else.
Yes.
And you have that intimacy. So it's really consciousness at play, very much so. Oh, and I do want people to know I will be appearing and presenting at the Psychic Galleries at the Awakening Wellness Center here in Portland, Oregon on Saturday night, the 20th, from 6 to 10. I'll be doing free demos and how to feel that heart-centered awareness, and then offering consciousness at play sessions, $2 a minute. So you can come and join me. Check out my website, or get a hold of me at janetandbeyond.com for more information. So I want to let everybody know that who's in the area here.
And you know what? Mine is not until September, but this way people are working on their calendars. Mm-hmm. I'm also doing a presentation. It is at Psychic Awakenings, which is on Queen Anne. And I'm going to be doing a workshop on deeper consciousness tools for transformation. So if you're feeling strange shifts and changes going on and you want to know what to do about it, you come to this and you will walk away in a new universe.
Totally. Which is what we all are looking for, people. And realities. It's all about reality sets, right? It's all about changing all the myriad of realities that any of us are in at one time, and how to just become conscious of that and play with it.
Yeah, so did I say that was on, that's September 10th. It is from 1 to 3. Okay. It's at Psychic Awakenings on Queen Anne, and you can find out more by going to our website, and you'll see a little announcement there. So that's Conscious Conversations with JoanandJanet.com.
And we want to remind people that our listener call-in number here is 1-844-390-8255 if you want to join us today live on the air.
Now what?
All that. I tell you, there's so much out there to consider, isn't there? Our subject. We have a subject for today.
Good. I have an object. You can be the subject.
Okay. We're going to talk about judgment, discernment, and consciousness. And what does that mean? What are those distinctions and differences that we want to be aware of, and when we can really feel people's judgments? And it's pretty prevalent out there these days. And so how to navigate that a little wiser.
Well, so the other thing is, the way I would see this too is, discernment is how do you discern? Mm-hmm. And it's different than judgment, because judgment is, yes, it's having an opinion, and it is, that it is just terrible to have judgments. And the people who have judgments, they are so judgmental. It is just awful how judgmental they are. And then how do you have discernment in the midst of that? But the other thing I was thinking when we talked about this show today is with discernment, because there's so many things to choose from out there, and there's so many wisdom of ascended masters, and or you hear voices in your head, and how do you discern whether or not that's your truth?
And what is your truth, right? Because we can be told it. How do we know it? There's so much information out there anymore that we're getting hit and lambasted with, and social media and media, and, what feels right, how to hear that quiet voice within ourselves. Because, we grow up with biases and perceptual biases, and coming out of our discernments, fostered by our judgments, and what is all that? I think in today's life, people are realizing that It's not out there. It's what's inside themselves that's important. And that's what you and I are here to help people with, is how to listen to themselves. Quiet out all the rest of it.
Yes. Yes. And it is just marvelous feeling to do that, to be able to quiet out. And it's so funny because we will set topics for the show, and sometimes they're contentious, sometimes they're controversial, and then you and I will be going into heart space any moment here. And when we're in heart space,
it just gets quiet.
There's no point to talk about it. So it's like, it was funny because the way I'm starting off is I'm all experiencing the judgmental vibe. And you're talking about heart space. And it's like, well, I don't talk about heart space. What do you mean heart space? But when we get into heart space, it's like, well, I talk about it. I just give it different words. And what's the big deal? So just imagine if, everybody watching television or listening to talk shows or anything like that, if they all did it from heart space.
And not from their judgments. Right?
Right.
Not from that. We're being very clear about, the challenge is media is set up and marketing is set up to create a need. It uses fear. And it uses fear in order to create that need. I have something you want. You have to know that you need it. So it's this self-fulfilling kind of thing. And anymore, people are getting wise. They can feel that underlying information. If that's not coming from a truth, then you can feel the nebulous, the kind of, the off-centering kind of feeling about it. Or maybe you don't recognize it, but you just know you don't feel that great after you hear this. And, we're seeing it play out in a lot of different ways. It's very present in groups. I lead groups weekly here. People are feeling, they listen to the news and the one gal was literally shaking. She says, why am I shaking? And so we broke it down, and it was that she was trying to process the fear out. She was accelerated about it. So, I can see we're going to go lots of places today here.
Yeah. Well, and you're right. It is marketing tactics. There are marketing tactics to push on people's pain points in order for them to purchase so that they feel better.
And we're not saying anything about business, okay? Because when this is done from a place of integrity, we don't have a judgment about that.
Right.
But
it's when it's manipulative. It's when it's, and that's, it goes overboard. So for instance, people will get sessions from you, people will get sessions from me, they'll come to our groups because they want to feel better. Mm-hmm. And so.
I presume.
Right. Why are you here? Oh, because you got really great cookies. And yes, because you do. So anyway, yes, exactly. So people come because they want to feel better, but we don't need to manufacture that. We don't need to artificially manufacture that in order to have people come in. And that's what we're pinpointing out into the world today is when it is manipulative, when it feels bad, then, and I'm judging that,
right.
To me, that's not consciousness. I know you say that everything is consciousness, and I get that, but for me, I also feel like when you're coming at it as consciousness, it doesn't have to be manipulative. It's not pain inducing. Mm-hmm. It feels good. And, probably people would be more prosperous and abundant if they weren't manipulated by those tactics. And those companies would be more prosperous and abundant if they didn't have to use those tactics.
I think we just are looking at, you're always going to get a certain amount of energy going with any of this. The quality is how long it lasts and if it reaches a set point that you just seem you can't get beyond. And it's probably because the built-in quality of whatever the designing engineering behind it was had to set that limit. and we can be very unconscious of it. And, we see it. Oh, I don't mean to. Yeah, I just noticed it. I'm in the medical business a lot as a patient, not as from the other part of it in my own story. And I get to see how people put out belief systems and that are generating something, and it's like, that's just your belief. That's not my truth. And maybe that's part of this, is how to sense when something is a belief and the difference between what you are. That's really about judgment and discernment and consciousness, I think.
So stay tuned, boys and girls, because we are going to be talking about this topic of judgment, discernment, and consciousness from heart space. But we have to stop for a commercial break right now, so you are listening to Conscious Conversations with Joan and Janet, and stay tuned. We will be talking about judgment, discernment, and consciousness in a state of grace right after these messages.
Is your soul calling you to do something more meaningful with your life? Do you feel crazy for wanting to quit your secure job? Perhaps you are waiting until you retire to do what you love. Maybe you are too daunted to follow your dream. If any of these match your life, then Joan Newcomb's Purpose and Passion Coaching Program is just for you. In just 12 weeks, you will discover who you essentially are and why you are here. Learn to live as your greater self and navigate with conscious mastery. Go to joan-newcomb.com. That's joan-newcomb.com for all of her coaching programs. Would you like a fresh approach to the challenges you are dealing with? Take a journey into your enlightenment with Janet Barrett. Janet is a subtle energies empath, accessing the field of potential with warmth, humor, and support. She will help you to hear what your inner voice is saying. She will share with you how to appreciate who you are now and offer you new ways to understand and transform your issues. Reach her at www.janetandbeyond.com. That's janetandbeyond.com. Again, janetandbeyond.com. Transformation is possible. You can enjoy new outcomes in your current experiences. They can happen in the blink of an eye.
You are listening to Conscious Conversations with Joan and Janet. To reach our program, please send questions and comments to consciouswithjoanandjanet@gmail.com. That's consciouswithjoanandjanet@gmail.com. Now, back to Conscious Conversations with Joan and Janet.
Welcome back. You're listening to Conscious Conversations with Joan and Janet. I am Joan, and I'm here with Janet, and we are talking about judgment, discernment, and consciousness.
And how it all works together. And there's nothing wrong with a judgment. There's nothing wrong with discernments. What we want to do is just be wise when we use them, because we make them all the time about things. So, let's see. Why don't we jump into heart space and have a next quiet 40 minutes?
Yeah, let's go there.
Yeah, really. Okay, everybody. So the part of you that can join us and listen in right in this moment, live, wonderful. The part of you that's listening to this from a different time and space and place, wonderful. We're all here together. So the part of you that's just can pay attention is going to pay attention and just allow it to. And let's just see where we are today with what's going on in the world around us. And just allow yourself to bring in awareness to heart. Okay, already I can just feel there's a whole lot of like somebody's holding their breath. So everybody, just what it'd be like to notice your heart, physical heart, and be filled with appreciation and gratitude that it's present and beating and that you can feel it. Okay, there's a breath. So, Those of you that are feeling some constriction or shortness of breath, just notice and allow your awareness to come down into yourself. There we go. And that's going to lead us into that second meaning of heart, which is emotional terrain. And I have a feeling that's what's kind of pressuring the physical here. So just go to a place of neutrality, acceptance. You are an emotional creature. It adds the flavors to your soup, so we like it. And just notice what's up and running, what you're feeling, whether it's irritation, anger, frustration. It seems to not feel warm and friendly. So let's just notice that could just relax a little bit more. And take yourself out of that triggered place and just pull back. There we go. Just seems to be that kind of a Wednesday morning maybe. And whatever time you're listening to this is the time you're listening to this. So don't let the Wednesday throw you off. Alright. Yeah, there's a lot of emotional energy running here. You can feel it down in the belly. That's just my experience of it. It doesn't have to be your experience of it. But just be aware. There's a breath. There's a shift. And it really sometimes feels like you're engaging a different gear in the car or in the mechanism. And Joan and I love to do this show because we're reaching out to listeners everywhere who can really use this kind of time, sense of time. And in consciousness, there is no time and space, and that's the fun of consciousness. But we create this time and space in order to re-engage. Lots of stuff going on there. There's a breath, everyone. Just have a deepening, more accessible sense of heart, of consciousness. Because we haven't even got to yet. There we go. It's coming up here. Is that third meaning of heart, which is core, essence of all. And this is where you and I are one. Where there are no boundaries, where there's just biophotons, with a little bit of mass to them, light photons, and resonance, vibrations, and information. And it's all softens. It all separates into the little bits and pieces, into the infinite sea of potential. And as you ride, realize that you're in a state of potential. And some of us can feel that. We're highly tuned at it. We train to feel that. So you may notice that as just something feels different. Something's letting go. And you don't really have the words. And that's fine, because this is often, we're not in the verbal processor here. We're just in the right brain, which is a global parallel processor. So just allow yourself to feel what you feel and don't judge it. And the power in that. And the underlying quiet in that. And just the sense of being. It's not about surrender or giving up or letting go or any of that. It is just about being. Take the judgments out. Take the limitations out. They're wonderful in their time and place and maybe don't serve you anymore. So what would it be like by the time we're done here in a little while that your need or want or your learnings and trainings that said this is what this is no longer quite so rough and tough and hard? Okay, Joan, I think we're there. We got lots of stuff going on there.
It is very active out there. Or very reactive out there.
Yeah, maybe so. Whoa.
I mean,
I think we needed that.
Yes, we did. We have a full moon tomorrow. It is a partial eclipse. So just with the astrological weather, there's a lot of reverberations going on, but and it's a completion of a 19-year cycle as well. But it's amazing. What we're also seeing is the result of greater consciousness in form. So it's like greater light into the world. And the thing that I'm noticing is that collectively, we're no longer tolerating things that we find intolerable. So people are getting upset about the sexism with the Olympics. Mm-hmm. You know, this young woman broke a record in history. She was the first woman to do this in history, and her her news announcement came underneath this guy getting a silver medal. Or the newscasters, saying there's a group of athletes standing there, and it says, well, they're just standing around like they're at the mall. And so these kind of double standards are coming up in a way that hasn't been recognized before or acknowledged before. And we're seeing issues to do with sexism and racism and all the divisive things that in the past nobody questioned. It was just the way it was. Mm-hmm. And as light is coming into the world and we're seeing everyone as consciousness, we just don't use that language. It's, people are getting reactive to those discernments, those judgmental discernments. I like to use the word discernment as a neutral form of judgment.
Mm-hmm. I think that according to some of those dictionaries we were reading, it's a wise judgment, right? It's judgment used well is what a discernment is. And I thought, oh, okay, got it. So you have judgments, and hopefully you have some sense of something operating there. And the discernment is the part that's like, oh, okay, let's pick the best out of it.
Well, and my point of view here and my mission, if you will, mm-hmm. is to navigate life as consciousness and to let people know that they are consciousness and they can navigate life as consciousness. And when you play in this realm, this world of this adventure and density and effort, when you play in it as consciousness, it's just a lot more fun. And it is a much more delightful experience, and all the contentiousness goes out of it. And if you are stuck in the realm of judgment, if you are bumping up against other people's opinions or your own opinions, if you're feeling that discomfort or even that reactive outrage, however warranted it may be, mm-hmm. You're operating, I like to call it like the bottom of the fish tank. You're at the bottom of the fish tank amongst all the muck and mm-hmm. stuff that's all down there in the gravel. It's, and that's a valid way. Consciousness is enjoying itself rolling in the mud as well. But if you would like to have an experience that is, less painful, more fun, rise up to that level of discernment, be able to tell the difference between your viewpoint, your perspective as consciousness, and when you're reacting as your body personality.
Right. It's important to know those distinctions. It's important to be, I think that's where the pleasure in navigating life comes from is, where in using self-awareness and how I am is me, and if I'm interested in that being an easier process than what I might judge a more harsh process. And it's all, if there's no judgment, then all is okay. And it's easier for me to have a sense of well-being, and I have less sense of well-being when I find myself in a judgment state. And so, and then if I can figure out, well, why am I in judgment state? Oh, that's why. Oh, well, that doesn't serve me now. Or, yeah, I'm okay with being that way. Both are equally valid viewpoints. And there's all those other viewpoints that are in there. And it's just me being able to choose why I'm doing. But I think what we're experiencing here is where people have assumed the roles they play, the things they think about, the things they think they are, and they're false. At heart, they're false. And there's someone else's opinion that we took on as our own. And that's what growing up and being and maturing as an individual is about, is to understand where you started from and put it in a perspective and realize, well, that's just where I started from. And it doesn't have to mean anything anymore. It adds to the flavor of this life.
I did a meetup in Bellevue on Sunday, and somebody who was fairly skeptical about all this consciousness stuff, but had come from a religious background, and he was starting to have his own awakening. And he was just wondering why, under the guise of spirituality, under the guise of spirituality, that religion has so much judgment. And what I see is religious groups are like phone booths to God. And we now all have our inner cellular that we can have a direct communication as consciousness. And really, it's not even just intercellular that connects us to the cosmic internet, but we are the cosmic internet. And yet, when you try to communicate that, there's always going to be a distortion. When you're trying to bring that into this world and communicate it, the moment you brought it into form, there's a distortion. There's going to be limitation. And if you're hearing it as, your body, you're hearing it as your limitations. So that's why all religions have a core essence of truth, and then all of them will have distortions. And, how do you have your own discernment about that? How do you get to your own truth?
Right. Well, for me, it's about being present. It's about being in this place where you and I are finding ourselves. And it's being okay with what I hear. That's an important thing. A lot of us are so reactive, or we're in an emotional state, and I think that's a challenge for us. When you're in an emotional state of some sort, and we're always in our emotions because that's the way most of us operate, I think, and I don't mean to make that as a judgment. I think that's probably a discernment. Always catching ourselves here. When you're coming from that place, you have to appreciate that that's creating a certain bias. And so anything, positive, negative, whatever, however you want to make a distinction, it's the filter. So which filter do you prefer? Or do you prefer to be able to be free to notice the filter and embrace it that way, which I guess is what I look to do, I suppose. And so how do we make decisions? How do we know that voice? Well, what do you think? How do we know it?
I know. So the way I can tell for me is through feeling. And I'm I can intellect up the wazoo. Right. And, my background is very intellectual. So I have to do things that bypasses the intellect. And I think we all have, our mind will take us out. And so how I can discern whether or not it's consciousness is it expansive? Mm-hmm. Does it feel expansive? Does it feel good? Does it feel, you're talking, heart space is this really delightful, joyous, expansive feeling. And that's when I'm viewing it from that, then I know it's consciousness. If I'm viewing it through strong opinions, if I'm being fearful, if I'm viewing limitation, that is my reaction then is unconscious. My reaction is as body personality. Now the tricky thing is the thing itself may not be unconscious. It might be my reaction to it. But, that's all the part of figuring out how to navigate life as consciousness. It's, are you driving on the gravel? Are you I'm mixing my metaphors, but if, have you gone off road, or are you taking the effortless path?
Oh, I like that idea, the effortless path.
And people, what happens a lot when people wake up to this is then they immediately stop trying because they have no need to manifest anything. They just enjoy being in the moment. So all of a sudden, all their goals have gone out the window. And
well, that's the truth. A lot of us manifest out of the agenda that's running. Right? It's not because you want something, it's because you feel that you must do something, right? And that can work a couple of different ways, but how come you want things? What's in the things? Oh, well, but that'll make me happy. Well, not really. Well, once you get it, you want something else. It doesn't do the satisfying that you thought it would do. It was more about the quest. That's the state you're in.
Yeah, I had a client recently complete this 12 weeks of transformation. There's this coaching program that I do with people one-on-one, and take them through the 12 weeks. And part of my role as their conscious mastery coach is I hold the container for them through that 12 weeks to manifest what they want to manifest. And so I was having a judgment that she hadn't manifested the things that she had outlined in the beginning that were her desires. I was feeling guilty. And she didn't care. She had gotten to this place where, she didn't need her soulmate. She was in love with herself. She was having a relationship with herself. All these things that she had set up in the beginning, she didn't have the same.
They were just the construct to get to talk, to be with you and figure out what was important.
And I think that yes, exactly. I think all of us bring those similar desires to the table, and then when we start to operate as consciousness, it looks different. Suddenly the numbers aren't important. Or yes, exactly. And it's more about having a rich life, a prosperous life, than having the numbers in your bank account. Or numbers flow into your bank account and flow out of your bank account, and you've got no attachment to that whatsoever.
Yeah.
Now, I've also had people, go from, borrowing money from their parents to making millions of dollars in a year because they are, at the same time, they've let go of that, worrying about it, and suddenly the flow comes in like Niagara Falls. So that can be a whole other show. You and I can have a whole other show about money and abundance and judging rich people. Rich people shouldn't get paid because, they're rich.
I'm sure we lost some of the audience with that one. Okay.
Yeah, there was a conversation you and I had about, whether or not a woman president should be paid the same as a male president.
Wouldn't even want to go there. I think it would be all the same, but I don't hold those distinctions. So, all right. Well, so what do we do with judgments? We need them. I mean, on a day-to-day life, you have to decide, okay, I'm going to cross the street or I'm not. So that's a judgment. A discernment might be, what's over there? Do I really want that? I mean, we operate out of different places. So what do we want to offer our listeners out there?
Let me see how I would define the difference between the judgment and discernment is having to cross the street, either resisting or feeling impelled to cross the street, thinking the street, what's across the street is less than or better than, the grass is always greener. It's better than or less than what I'm experiencing now, that if I don't get across the street, my life is going to be over. And so that is, there's a clue there, whereas opposed to, I kind of feel like crossing the street. I'm kind of curious what's over there. It might be fun to be over there. There's sun on that side and then there's some shade on that side. And so the shade is nice. It's nice it's being the sun. And let me try the experience of crossing the street. And how am I going to cross the street? Should I walk across the street? Should I go across on my hands? Should I do cartwheels? If you can just totally get the difference between the discernment of crossing the street and not.
Right. Yeah. No, that's just, that's right.
One ringy dingy, two ringy dingies. Is someone calling in? Is it you, Mr. God?
Really?
I think good morning to you.
A wonderful exploration of how you describe that. All the different, what the underlying energy is behind those choices, and that you do have all those choices. And by the time you get through them, we don't go through all those consciously. We just make a couple of quick, habituated probably responses. And so we lose all that, right? And I loved how you took all that apart and put it all out there. That's great. So yeah. So why do we do things? Why do we decide? Why do any of us? What's motivating you? And are you coming from a place of inspiration? Motivation for me feels like an outside projectile that's projecting me to do something, where I want to take that motivation because I want something different, and then I'm inspired to take action. And how that comes into play with being conscious.
Well, the other thing is that, we are traveling this experience with a physical body, and the physical body has preferences. And it is okay for the body to have preferences. My body prefers to be warm. My body prefers to be fed. My body prefers to be hydrated and rested. And, my husband's preference is to be cold and to eat a lot more than I can eat. And, we have different preferences, and that's one of the things is that people start to be as consciousness, they feel like they have to deny the body, or there's something wrong with the body's preferences. This is about going with the flow and enjoying yourself. But I have to say, I have gotten a psychic impression here, and I am pretty certain that it is time for us to take a break. So we have to stop for a commercial break right now, but you're listening to Conscious Conversations with Joan and Janet, and we will be right back talking about judgment, discernment, and then consciousness in the state of grace.
Is your soul calling you to do something more meaningful with your life? Do you feel crazy for wanting to quit your secure job? Perhaps you are waiting until you retire to do what you love. Maybe you are too daunted to follow your dream. If any of these match your life, then Joan Newcomb's Purpose and Passion Coaching Program is just for you. In just 12 weeks, you will discover who you essentially are and why you are here. Learn to live as your greater self and navigate with conscious mastery. Go to joan-newcomb.com. That's joan-newcomb.com for all of her coaching programs. Would you like a fresh approach to the challenges you are dealing with? Take a journey into your enlightenment with Janet Barrett. Janet is a subtle energies empath, accessing the field of potential with warmth, humor, and support. She will help you to hear what your inner voice is saying. She will share with you how to appreciate who you are now and offer you new ways to understand and transform your issues. Reach her at www.janetandbeyond.com. That's janetandbeyond.com. Again, janetandbeyond.com. Transformation is possible. You can enjoy new outcomes in your current experiences. They can happen in the blink of an eye.
You are listening to Conscious Conversations with Joan and Janet. To reach our program, please send questions and comments to consciouswithjoanandjanet@gmail.com. That's consciouswithjoanandjanet@gmail.com. Now, back to Conscious Conversations with Joan and Janet.
Welcome back. You're listening to Conscious Conversations with Joan and Janet. I'm your host, Joan. I'm along here with Janet, and we are talking about judgment, discernment, and consciousness.
And we're trying to make them. And how we make all these things.
We're trying to make people conscious because unconscious people are just terrible. You're so irritating. There's something really wrong with unconscious people.
No, we'll have to be honest.
And
we
you're
love
sitting there judging them all, right?
Yeah.
Dang.
We love unconscious people because they really allow us to see where we're at, right? I mean, it's all about contrast, and similarities and stuff. So if there was nothing to judge, and so do this the next time you're with, or think of someone that you have an issue with. All right, everybody, let's make this real. It's like, okay, do you have a sense of them or do you have more sense of your own stuff? And are you defensive? Are you in a reactive place? Or are you calm and neutral and going, ooh, what are you showing me that I need to pay attention to?
I like to say that if you're pointing the finger at someone, your index finger is you've got 3 fingers pointing back at yourself.
Yeah, totally.
So I know when I'm extremely triggered, then I need to take a look at what is triggering me.
Right.
So if I'm finding someone irritating, if I'm finding somebody terrible, what's my, what slides am I viewing them through? And what is irritating me, so I will give an example as there's this very large blonde-haired person, orangey blonde person in the world today that is generating a lot of opinions. And it's been interesting for me to observe that, and because I see them, symbolizing bringing out of the woodwork all the judgments and things that are in the process of disintegrating on the planet today. So it's fascinating to watch this being. Yes, says Siri. Siri agrees with me. That's viewing.
I figured as much.
Got an opinion coming from my iPad. Okay, so there you go. That's weighed in. And he doesn't trigger me the way that people are being triggered, because I get this greater experience of the being is consciousness and what is happening collectively.
I think what I'm also catching is how there is so much up in the world, and how much what I'm particularly noticing for myself and friends and people in group, and so I gotta admit I'm around them a lot, is how we're feeling stuff. Everything is feeling really intense, and it's not just our stuff. It's our ability to track, consciously or unconsciously, the other stuff that's up.
Right.
And
we're feeling other people's feelings as well.
So we want to be able to pay attention to that. In helping ourselves is to understand, hey, I'm feeling just fine and now I feel horrible. And then you go into feeling horrible and you think it's you, and then, unless you talk to someone or, however you've got it engineered, that someone gives you feedback and go, well, I'm feeling that too. And then you can kind of go, just a minute here. All right. And all of a sudden you're feeling fine.
Right.
And in that, we're kind of like processing and ventilating this energy that's out and around. And I've been really noticing it that way, is how me experiencing what I'm perceiving, I think I'm experiencing, is a way for that energy to dissipate, a way for that energy to be less. And it's kind of like we're all fluttering our wings, and that's creating this way that energy is just breaking down and back into potential. Because one thing I feel really strongly, and I know you got a thought there, is the what is it? Oh, it just went out.
That's because I have a thought.
Yeah.
My thought's better than yours. So, so actually, what my thought is that this flows wonderfully into our topic for next week. So we're coming to completion about, we could talk forever about judgment, discernment, and consciousness, but you can see with all we've been talking about is that when you can get into discernment and when you can choose to experience all that's going on in the world today as consciousness, you start to feel more peace, kindness, respect, and consciousness. And that is our topic for next week. So next week we're going to be talking about peace, kindness, respect, and consciousness. And if this is the essence of life, why don't we experience this more in the world? So tune in next week to enjoy the vibe with us.
Yeah. We're working really hard to have an agenda with it. It's not working so well.
I'll make something up. So the other thing is I want to remind folks that our show has a website. It is Conscious Conversations with Joan and Janet. So if you want to catch any of these podcasts, they're on there. If you want to find out more about Janet and myself, you can access our websites there. You can access our blogs. You can also access our meetups. So we have meetups around the Puget Sound and in Portland, and we have lots of fun experiences going on. You can find out more about Janet's sessions. I also want to remind folks that this show is on Facebook. You can go to Facebook and find Conscious Conversations with Joan and Janet. You can also find Janet on Facebook, Janet Barrett, and I'm on Facebook, Joan Marjorie Newcomb. And the show is on Twitter. It's at Joan and Janet on Twitter, and I'm on Twitter at Joan Newcomb. And you can subscribe to us on YouTube. In fact, you can find out more about my YouTube channel on our website as well. And Janet, you've got something coming up pretty soon in Portland there.
Yes, this Saturday, August 20th from 6 to 10, I'm going to be at Psychic Galleries, which will take place at the Awakening Wellness Center in Southeast Portland. And I'll be doing free demos and helping you feel your heart-centered awareness, what we do here all the time. And then offering consciousness at play sessions at $2 a minute, which is a really great deal. And we can take the time to explore what's unique and personal with you that you'd like to maybe notice something different about. So I hope you'll contact me about that.
And tomorrow we have a conscious conference call. So if you enjoy these shows and you'd like to get up close and personal to us and get a word in edgewise, then you can call in tomorrow. It's August 18th. It's 7 p.m. Pacific. We do them once a month, usually the third Thursday of the month. Email us at consciouswithjoanandjanet@gmail.com. or connect with us through our website, consciousconversationswithjoanandjanet.com for that. And I have an event coming up in September, on September 10th at Psychic Awakenings on Queen Anne in Seattle. It's from 1 to 3. I'm offering deeper consciousness tools for transformation. So if you want to know how to actually navigate life as consciousness, have a better feeling of well-being, go from dial-up to Wi-Fi and all the other groovy stuff, come visit me on September 10th.
I highly recommend it, everybody. If you're up there in that Puget Sound area, you take the time and go see Joan and enjoy yourself.
And I highly recommend traveling to Portland and seeing Janet, because you are an experience and you should be experienced. And it's lovely and delightful. And her home is pretty fun too, by the way. She has really a fantastic house.
And that's why the northwest corner of the United States is such an incredible place, because Joan and I are here.
Right, so. It's better than every place else. And if you can't be there in person, join us on our Conscious Conference call, and join us every week here where we connect to you around the world. No time, no space, just the all.
That's us. So we look forward to catching you the next time, and we look forward to you no matter where and when and how and why that might be. Enjoy life, everyone.
You've been listening to Conscious Conversations with Joan and Janet. I'm your host, Joan Newcomb.
And I'm Janet Barrett. And thank you so much for joining us.
Tune in next week. Same time, same channels.
Best judgment you made all day.
You've been listening to Conscious Conversations with Joan and Janet. And thanks so much for helping to co-create the show, no matter if you're listening live or on demand. You energetically contribute to our collective experience. Joan and Janet love to hear from you and invite you to email your comments and ideas for them to explore each week. Contact them at consciouswithjoanandjanet@gmail.com. Tune in next week for another great show, and until then, keep enjoying this wonderful adventure we call life.